Hey everyone, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the Live Fearlessly video podcast series. I am chatting today with Julia Stubbe, and she is an intuitive spiritual counselor and a channel for healing energy, specializing in assisting people in overcoming emotional blockages, spiritual issues, and physical conditions, as well as encouraging growth and wellness within ourselves. So using a holistic approach, she interweaves many healing modalities to find a deeper understanding of physical problems by peeling away the layers of surface challenges and blockages, and understanding and realization of issues through this healing enlightenment are exposed, allowing those deeper issues to come to light. This approach facilitates healing transformation through hands-on healing and holistic counseling. She channels multiple dimensional beings,
They might be here now.
Here we go. Transmissions that clear old programming and activate creative DNA coding, evaluating your vibration and frequency to support you on your journey unfoldment. And I'm probably like butchering this bio, you guys. She's going to tell you more about this because she's been doing this for so long. She is so freaking fun. The 2 seconds that I talked to her right before we started this recording, we were just like kicking it old school, like we've known each other forever, having a blast. So Julia, she really is an intuitive artist, and she has a radio talk show that she's a co-host called A Call to Heal. And it's a unique radio show that provides its listeners with the opportunity to heal themselves, thus healing humanity. So, Julia, I'm going to let you explain more about what all of this means.
Well, it was quite a mouthful for you, wasn't it, Rebecca? Woohoo!
Keep talking. But first, I would love for you to share as well, like, where are you located? Where are you tuning in from today?
I'm currently living in Florida. I moved here from Pennsylvania a little over 6 years ago.
Awesome.
So, and that's a whole, you said, talk about fearless. It's like how Spirit got me here was like 2 years prior to when I moved. Spirit came to me because I was doing energy healing part-time. So I said, like, wear my Batman tights. That was I'm going to go put my Batman tights on and I'm going to go do a little energy healing, a little under the radar stuff. And Spirit said, well, we want you to wear your Batman tights all the time. So it's time to sell your house and quit your job. And I'm like, okay. So what does that look like? All right. So it's like, okay, I'm ready. It's like, so I folded a map of the US into quarters and I doused it with a pendulum. Now, part of me was a wussy girl because I did not go internationally because that was just way too much for me to comprehend. But I doused the map, ruled out the northern part of the US, got the 2 southern quarters, and I did it state by state, got 9 states. And I'm like, well, that's too much to choose from. And then I got down to 2 states, New Mexico and Florida, and I need 1 person here. And that's how I ended up here. But it took 2 years for me to sell my house and everything. But I was ready. And I asked Spirit, well, why do we have to wait so long? And they said, Julia, you know, it's only April and we tell you it's going to rain in November and you already got your goulashes out and your umbrella up. So I really go by that trust and that inner guidance of where I'm guided to go as far as that goes. So
I love it.
That's how I got to Florida anyway. What else do you want to know? Where do you want to go next?
I love it. I love it. That is so, I've been more in touch with my own intuition and trusting my gut instincts and knowing those things to be true. So I love connecting with people about this more because it just anchors it even more. Every time you hear stories like that and how things are going and the progression and how we are growing from the experiences, like moving to a totally different state, you know, and making those transitions. So I think that's beautiful. And I'm excited to dive in and learn more about you. So that kind of ties in. I always ask, like, what's a fun fact that you want us to know about you? But that's a really fun fact already.
Right. Well, yeah. And people said, well, it's like, you're so brave. And I'm like, no, I'm chicken shit. I just know how to walk through the fear. It's like, I just don't let it hold me back from doing the things that I know are possible. And with that move, it's like it gave me freedom. My corporate job, I got to do as a subcontractor. So it gave me sustainable living, only working like maybe 10, 15 hours a week, where I got to do my artwork. I got to, you know, the radio show, that's a whole nother stepping through fear. And I got healthier. I got healthier because the energies, the real reason Spirit wanted me to move out of Pennsylvania is that the ley lines, being that I'm such a high level empath, the ley lines are right up in Pennsylvania, and it was just bringing the fear right up through, and it was actually affecting my physical body on such a level that my health was deteriorating. Wow. So being able to move down here gave me all those benefits, and it's like I had no preconceived notion of what was going to show up. I just trusted that it was something that was going to be better than what it was.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I love hearing those things because, you know, viewers, you're watching this, there is hope for all of us, right? Like following our instincts and listening and taking the actions, even if it's preparing for 2 years, right? You were taking the steps in order to make it happen, trusting and believing in what that was going to be, not even necessarily knowing the details, but
yeah, I didn't know how I was going to financially support myself. I didn't know any of that. It just unfolded perfectly, and it's been beautiful. It's been a wonderful experience, and Spirit actually has me coming, I guess, 2021, moving again, kind of in different. I got a little bit more direction. I don't have to. It's like I'm going to the mountains somewhere, so it's like we'll see where that ends up. But that's looks awesome. like a spring move is what they're showing me now. So we'll see what happens. But I'm going to go for it.
I love it. And I love that you mentioned, you know, the living fearlessly piece and doing the things, right? Because I always mention that, you know, the name Live Fearlessly video podcast is not to say that there is no fear. It is to say that we have fear every single day, big and small. And it's really the mindset and how we approach what comes to us, because we're always going to have the challenges and the struggles and the questions and the unknowns. But it's really that mindset shift to see that we need to believe in something. We need to trust and keep moving forward and taking the small actions to, you know, build up to whatever that is that we're going for, that we're looking for. So I love that you mentioned that, because that's totally true. And that's why I named this, and that we talk about fear, is because so many people get caught up in the fact that, you know, you're so fearless and you're so bold. And it's like, well, take one step at a time, and it builds momentum, and it builds to see that, you know, you have the courage to keep taking one step. That's really all we need to do, one step at a time, and being open to the messages and in the trusting and in the unfolding. So that's awesome.
And then another thing I do when it's something that comes up like that is like, well, what's the worst that could happen? I ask myself that. And then what's the best that could happen? And sometimes what the best could happen is scarier than what the worst could happen. So it's like,
right.
You know, so, but it's like, if you go with that, it's like, what's the worst that can happen? Well, they could say no, or, you know, or that might close the door, but the best could be, it's like magic could happen. It's really about, you know, your perspective and opening to the possibilities and being in the question of the possibilities, because the universe will provide. At least that's my belief, and that's the way I live.
Yes, absolutely. I believe that too. I love it. I love it. Okay, let's dive into your story more and hear more about you and how you know, have grown from living your life on the fearless side and walking through that. So when you hear the question, you know, when was a significant time in your life when fear held you back from living your life fully, and how has that like progressed to make you the leader that you are today? Where do you go when you think about a fear time in your life?
Well, I grew up my mom was a psychotic alcoholic, and there was a lot of violence and abuse growing up as a child. And you also, being that, you learn to be a chameleon, because you become who you need to become in order to survive. Right. So, and you know patterns, so you don't know something different. So through, you know, anger and all failed relationships and everything, I came to a point in my 30s where I had done the talk therapy, and I had been in the depression. So I really went through such I just didn't even want to be on the planet anymore. And so in my 30s, I was going to a massage therapist for my neck, because I had been in a car accident in March of 1980. And she had to get her hips replaced. So she recommended me to another massage therapist who was actually a shamanic healer. And it's Ann Picone from Pathways to Healing up in Pennsylvania. And they're in Berks County near Reading, Pennsylvania. So if anybody wants to look them up, they've got some amazing gifts to give to people. But she gave me a beautiful massage, like a bulldozer, because she's like in there. But then she touched my heart chakra, and literally the pain shot through my back and down all the back of my spine and into my tailbone. And it was scary because it hurt, but I knew, I'm going to get emotional. I knew I was in the right space, because I knew something was being affected in me that was going to enable me to heal, to become whole. And so I signed up for it, and it's like we would go in, and the one instance where I did a regression into when I was like 18 months old. And so I started talking baby talk, and my body I hurt my body all over, and my head hurt all of a sudden. And it's like I was crying, and it's like I was talking baby talk because I was 18 months old. And when I came out of that experience, literally I filled like 3 or 4 paper towels full of water. It just kept coming out because my body remembered me drowning in that instance, because my mom, the water was hot, so I cried, and my mom didn't want my dad to hear me crying because he was very violent. So when she shoved me under the water, it cracked my head into the tub. Oh, so I had all this memory coming up, but the water came out, and I was like, wow, the body remembered it. And it's like, so, but it was letting go. It was the beginning of like, wow. And, I truly left my body then, and we could go on a whole nother topic of walk-ins, but that's because I had something else that came in to help, to assist me to make it through because of the violence and the relationships growing up. Wow. But I signed up to do that every couple of weeks, not knowing what would come up next, because that's scary. Like, wow, it's like, that was so traumatic, because the way she worked is like you get in there, you deal with it, you see it. It's like the way I facilitate now is a lot gentler. But that was like huge for me. That was my moment to begin to become whole, and it was scary shit. It was whoops, I said I wouldn't say bad words on the but it was scary stuff. And so, but I would go every week or every 2 or 3 weeks. I can't remember now, because it's we're talking over 30 years ago, and around 30 years ago. I'm going to do math in my head. Anyway,
you've done the work.
I've done the work. I've done the work. And, so, and it was beginning. And from there, it's like I started Wellness Treasures. That was a company that I started, because it's like when you do energy work, you'd use salt scrubs and bath salts. So I started making the salt scrubs and bath salts, because it's like I couldn't find any products I didn't like. And then I would take them to holistic shows and sell them. And I created a website, and it and so that started. And then I took like a Reiki class, and it's like, oh, this is that energy healing. So I started working on myself, and then I got guided to go up to the Omega Institute in New York. And they said, you're just supposed to go. And I'm like, okay. So I went through the catalog, and like, oh, angels, I like angels. So I picked the integrated energy therapy class course, which was basic, intermediate, and the advanced classes, because they work with the 9 healing angels. And I got my certificate there, and it's like, I was like, ooh. And it's like, so then I evolved from product into like touching people, because that's where it started as far as that goes.
Wow. That's 18 months, like, to go back that far and start the healing from there. Like, wow, that is, and when you talked about the tissues and stuff that were filled, it was like, to me, what I heard was like, that was your body releasing the memory of what that was, and like,
right. Yeah,
letting it out, like literally.
Yeah, because your mind blocks stuff out because it's so traumatic, but your body holds on to that. And that's what causes dis-ease. So you have these blocks or these memories inside your body that is creating and keeping you stuck. So it's about finding those and looking at them. So, and there's different ways to do that. It's like at this point in my life, there's a whole, I've gone the gambit. Sometimes I call it dumpster dive, and it's like, oh, what can we look for today? But I try to stay mellow, but it's like if something triggers you and irritates you, that's a sign there's something inside you that needs to heal. We get all these mirrors. The universe brings us these opportunities. So if something really irks you or makes you angry, you want to look at that and it's like, wow, what about that? What is that inside of me that I need to take a look at? And I think, so when something like that shows up, I thank the universe for the mirror. As that person got to do it because the universe is giving me a sign, and it's just showing up as a person. So you can't be upset with the vehicle. It's like so you got to look at the mirror, and it's like, so it gives you an opportunity to really take a look at yourself and what you're ready to let go of, because the universe isn't going to send you something that you're not ready to let go of.
Right. So Julia, like in this process, when you found this healing modality and you started figuring out, what this process was, and you started going every couple of weeks and all of that, like, how did you feel about yourself? Like, where were you in a mental state during that transition? And like, how did you feel about yourself, like figuring these things out?
I that's a hard question to answer because I don't really know how I felt. I just know that I was shifting and changing and I was finding out who I was, because I didn't really know who I was, because I had to protect myself from the violence. My body had to be protected because it was holding on to all that fear and that anger.
Yeah.
So it was about like, oh, who's this person and what is she like? So now it's like I get to be, you notice I'm a little silly sometimes because I like that childlike energy, because as a child, I didn't get to be a child. So I really like to embrace that energy now and bring that joy. It's like, and I'm recognized for my laugh, and it's like, how cool is that? And so I just knew I was on the right path. So I don't know if I had a feeling about it, because I don't think I analyzed it that way. I just would be in it, because I don't really, even now, it's like I always look at the concept. This is what we're going to do. I don't need all the steps. I don't need to know all those steps to create the concept. It's like, just like with math, it's like, if you know the answer, you know the answer. Why do you have to show all those steps? And then they change the steps every 5 to 7 years, so that you thought you knew the steps, and then now you don't. So anyway, what else do you want to talk about?
No, yeah, I could go on a whole thing about that too, because that's definitely a conversation that I always have had. I'm like, I don't understand why you have to do this. If you know it, you know it. But so what about like other relationships? So the relationship with yourself, right? You were just kind of unfolding, figuring out who you are. What about like outside relationships?
Well, outside relations took a toll. Like in my 20s, before I started the whole process, it's like I only knew what I knew. So I would be attracted to energies of self-destruction and abuse and insecurity, and people who would tell me, I still, being told that you're selfish because you want something for yourself. So it's like I attracted all that. And that's why I went into depression, and I ended up going into talk therapy in my 20s, but it really didn't get me. I mean, I didn't really think I would live to see 30, because I never wanted to hurt anybody else. I would always sacrifice myself, but I was self-destructive because I didn't feel like I fit. I didn't know who I was. I had so much pain inside my body and my emotions. And then when I went through the whole transition part, it's like my son's father, it's like the relationship dissolved, because actually when my son was born, I realized that there was more to me and I wanted more, because it brought back memories of when I was a child. So it brought all this stuff back. So before I was like black and white. It's like, oh, you want this, that, da, 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 da. But then I became really gray. Like, it's like, and I wanted attention, and I wanted you to pay attention to me, where before it's like, oh, you do your thing, I'll do my thing, we're good. It was like there was the line. But once I started figuring out who I was, I wanted more. So it took its toll on its relationship. And I've had several relationships along the way. And I actually gave relationships up for almost 10 years because I was constantly working on myself, and I knew to get involved with someone would just be futile because I was changing so quickly. And now it's like I've had a relationship here and there. It's like just to experience it. And it's like, you know, it's like stick your toe in the water and okay, let's jump in. And I still do that. I do that with all my heart as far as that goes. And it's like, sometimes I know it's like, this is like, because it's like, you know, there's either the reason, the season, or for, you know, for the always. And it's like, most of the time it's just for the season. It's like, I know my heart's going to break and I'm going to get hurt because that's the kind of person I am. I love with all my heart, but I'm going to experience love. And I'm going to experience it regardless. And it's like, yeah, maybe after, you know, 6 months from now, a year from now, I'm going to be like, oh, another one of those. But
but staying open.
But I'm open. And but I got to experience it. And what did I learn about myself through this relationship? And you know, so do I deserve more? Can I allow myself to accept more? So it's like I ask those questions about myself. So that's as far as personal relationships that is, but I have like with my son's going to be 30 this December. And it's like, I have a great relationship with him. I became a different parent. Can I tell you a funny story? It's like, because we won't let him see this, right? So when he was younger, I never hit, I never spanked, I never hit. I always like taught him through empathy how to react and stuff. And so he's like 8 or 9 years old, and he has one of those really short haircuts, like where their heads are shaved. And we're at the vegetables, right? And you know how the sprayers turn on?
Yeah.
Well, he stuck his head underneath the sprayer because he wanted to experience it. And I whacked him in the shoulder, and it made a really loud crack. And this lady looked at me. I'm like, oh my gosh, the first time I hit my kid, I'm going to get arrested for child abuse.
Oh my God.
And my son goes, Mom, you hit me. You never hit me. And he proceeded to like whack himself in the arm to get that feeling through the rest of the grocery store trip. But I was like, oh, thank goodness. And we talked about everything. It's like, I made sure I shifted. I wasn't my mother. It's like, we communicated. We talked about at 9 years old, we were talking about sex because this girl who was 13 was like flirting with him. And it's like, and, you know, it's like, you know, I just want to make sure because girls can be a little, and you're really a nice little kid. And so, and, you know, so we talked about that. We talked about driving. I didn't teach him. There was no way. His dad taught him. Thank you. I taught him about sex. His dad taught him about driving. And so, but the relationship is good because it's like, he's still up in Pennsylvania, and it's like, you know, he'll still text me, see how you're doing. We'll talk once in a while. And we have that healthy relationship because it's like, we work through the stages of different things, and that communication was always open. So by me doing the work on myself, it allows me to have that beautiful relationship with my son, you know, at this point in my life.
That is amazing. I seriously, one of the things that has been surrounding me a lot. So I have 2 small boys. I have a daughter and then 2 small boys. But something that has always been on my heart is to intentionally be parenting to raise good men, so that whoever marries or has my children in their life, that they get a whole person. So I love that you're like,
Exactly.
when you started to become whole, I feel like that is a huge disconnect in our world, is that men are not being fully raised to be whole, and it translates into very negative, poor relationships as adults. And then it's women trying to raise their significant others to be whole men, you know. So man, that's amazing to hear, because it's been a real conversation in my world.
Yeah, because like there's some issues because like he, you know, had to do chores. He was responsible to do chores, and it's like, and he learned to cook for himself. He did his own laundry. I can tell you, and I'll tell you another little thing about empathy with him, because here's another one. This is how I taught him. So he's at 5. He was going to have 2 wives. So there was Stephanie and there was Amanda. Amanda's a little blonde. Stephanie was a little like Hawaiian kind brunette thing. So it's like, and he goes, they're going to have separate houses, Mom. And I'm like, oh, wow, at 5 years old, he's already got that figured out. And yeah, keep them separate. And so we were at a pool, and he was in, and Amanda was in there, and he was splashing her. And I saw her ask, could you stop? Could you stop? But he kept splashing and splashing. And so I said, you know, come on up and have a seat here. And it's like, I said, so what's going on there? And he goes, I'm playing. I said, so you're splashing her? He goes, yeah. I said, did she ask you to stop? He goes, yeah. I said, well, why didn't you stop? He goes, because she likes it. I'm like, because I had to find out where he was looking at it, because you can't just say, well, don't do that. That's not nice. I had to see his perspective to get that perspective. So I said, okay. And I stood up. I said, okay, come on, we're going to go in the pool. And he stands up, and he knows his mother. And it's like, I said, and he takes a step back. He goes, what are we going to do? I said, oh, we're going to get in the pool and we're going to play, and I'm going to splash it. I'm going to splash you some more, and I'm going to keep splashing you, but you're going to ask me to stop, but I'm not going to stop because you're going to really like it. He goes, oh, I don't think so. I said, so what do you think, you know, how Amanda felt? She probably didn't like it. I said, so what do you need to do? Apologize. Okay, go for it. So that's how I taught, by instead of just saying you can't do this, by trying to figure out their perspective, because those little beings, it's like they think completely different than us adults.
Right.
So to come down to their level and find out the why they're looking at it this way.
Yeah, I call that a teachable moment. That's what I say about like verbalizing and talking through things with my kids. They're teachable moments that we can really pull through to. It's not just about sit down, shut up style classrooms. That's what since I was 12, I literally knew I wanted to have 3 or more kids. I wanted to teach them through a life experience lens more than a sit down, shut up style classroom, because I knew there was a huge disconnect in how boys were raised to be men and all of that. So, wow. Okay. Awesome tangent.
Yeah. So I feel like because back then it's like, and I got criticism for the way I parented because.
Oh, sure.
Because we would have, because the rule was with my son and I was, my rule was to create the boundaries, and his rule and his job, my job was to create the boundaries. His job was to push those boundaries as far as he could. And as long as we were doing our job, there was no reason to get upset with each other. And we would discuss it, and finally I would have the final say. But we would go back and forth like that, and people thought we were like, but we were actually just having a discussion that got a little passionate. But that was the way we interacted, because it was like, so it learned him how, you know, communication skills of how to say what he wants, but then to find that compromise as well. And he understood that from the time he was like, you know, 7 years old. That was the way we operated. And so it's like, it's just the way I just wanted to, you know, raise him differently than I was raised, and be able to be there no matter what questions he asked or what subject we were going to talk about, is to just be open to that subject. And I can tell you, and I'm not going to say it on the air, some of the embarrassing subjects, because being an intuitive and knowing what the question is before he asks is a little weird sometimes, because it's like, oh, can I ask that later when we're not in this breakfast? I'm like, sure, that'll give me time to think of an answer. Because there were some interesting questions. And if he would watch this, and if I would say that, it's like, he would probably not talk to me for a week or 2 or longer, maybe.
We won't push that boundary. Don't worry.
Excellent.
I love it. I love how the conversation just like flows into these certain things, because so anyone that's watching, like, I hope this is what you needed to hear, because these are really important pieces of how we can think differently, especially when, you know, other people are criticizing, like, look at the world that we're living right now. We're getting criticized for every little thing that we do or don't do. And everybody's being scrutinized for everything and divided. And I think it's really cool to hear how you found what worked for you and your son, and that it's helped the relationship by talking things through instead of the reaction. And like, I love that conversation for sure. So with that, or your story actually about, you know, when you were becoming whole yourself on that path, like, what is the advice that you would give the viewers that are listening?
Well, if you're like emotional pain or physical pain, and you need to look inside yourself, is to find someone who can facilitate for you. If you can't do it yourself, you've got to really look at it. Because I was very independent, and it's like, so for me to accept help, because it's like I had to be a survivor, but to really accept that, hey, the universe is going to offer me help, I'm going to take it. And, you follow your heart of where you're guided to go, and let somebody, assist you. Because like for me, I don't heal anybody. My philosophy is I empower others to empower themselves to heal themselves. So because I've been working and keeping my stuff really clear, so my connection with source is really clear, so the information I channel is really clear, and it doesn't get all gobbledygooked up with stuff that I haven't dealt with. So that gives me the opportunity to give really, clear, read the energy clear, and intuitively give messages from source to the other people. So it's about you finding someone that can help you with that. I mean, because that's my journey. That's how it started for me.
Yeah, I can relate to that so much. And it goes back to what you said earlier and on here too, is you mentioned in your story, you only know what you know, right? We don't know what we don't know until we know it, and then we see it. And that goes back to, we can only go so far with capabilities, and then we do need outside help to facilitate the next steps moving forward, and to just kind of help draw them out so that we can actually see where the improvement can be.
Right. So it's like about, you have your story, and a lot of people are stuck in their story, but letting go of the fear is writing yourself a new story.
Yeah.
And it can be scary, because it's like what does a new story look like? What would that look like? What would that be like? Because we have that crutch of the old story, because it's what we know. Mm-hmm. So it's letting go of that old story and really shifting your foundation and writing a new one.
I love that. So, and one of the things that I love doing and that I love asking on here is about vision, right? Like 5 years from now, like where do you see what you have now in place? Like even thinking about like 5 years ago from where you are now, but thinking futuristic, right? Like where do you, I mean, we know you're going to the mountains. We heard you're going to the mountains, Julia, but where do you see yourself like 5 years from today? What do you envision?
I just want to be in joy. That's all. I just want to be in joy and have some really good, healthy, delicious food, and my cat. It's like whatever, and then whatever else shows up on top of that, bring it to me, universe. It's like I just want to be in joy. I want to be in bliss. I want to have freedom, and that's it. That's what I want. That's really that's what I want. I don't really know how else is to say that, because that's
cool. I love that you mentioned good food, because that speaks to me for sure. I'm a foodie, and it has, that's part of life experience is enjoying, savoring, using all of our senses. I'm all about the full experience. So you got to get good food. I love that you said that.
Right. Well, there's good food. It's like 3 years ago, I think it was, I wanted to jump out of a perfectly good airplane. So I did a tandem jump. So it's like every year, it's like I pick something that I haven't done before, and I do it, and it's like, and I had the video of it, and it's like, well, I just have extra, I'm just wearing extra thick Depends, and I'm in great shape, so it's like,
yes.
But the experience of it, so it's like, I don't have, like, my art is something I do a lot, but it's like, I just like to experience different things. And it's like, well, I have never done that. So I'm just going to try it. And I don't necessarily have to do it like 20, 30 times. It's like, I can do it once. It's like, wow, okay, cool.
Yeah, so
got
that experience.
Yeah, I got that experience.
I love that so much. I'm definitely that. Our souls relate on that for sure. I'm a let's go see how it is. Let's go experience it, and then we know, and then we can decide if it's fun, do it again. If it was just okay, then maybe you don't do it again, and that's totally fine.
Right.
That's awesome. I love it. So we're wrapping up here. Where is the best place for the viewers to connect with you, Julia?
Well, if you want to check out my website, it's juliastubbe.com. And I also have a Facebook presence, so you can search me. I'm like some kind of blue goddess there in the stars and the sun. But the website's the best place, because that shows you the offerings. There's a way to actually send me a message there if you want to connect. And the radio show is A Call to Heal. It's on the BBM Global Network on Monday nights live. We're actually taking a little hiatus till January. So that's on the internet as well, and go from there. I also have a YouTube channel. Julia Stubbe, the Galactic Channel, and there's healing processes there. And there's all kinds of, like, we're going to put your interview in there. And there's a playlist with all the different episodes of the show, the radio show. And then there's also the galactic channeling, where I channel the light language through the galactic beings. There's a whole bunch of those as well.
Ooh, cool.
Ooh.
Okay, that's awesome. So is there anything that you would like to leave the viewers with as we close out? What's the last thing you would like us to know?
I would, if you could do anything, it's like a lot of people want to know what their purpose is and how they can make a difference. And just be kind. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others. Your ripples, you have no idea where the ripples of kindness go. So if you can just do that, that's huge. Much love.
I love that. I love that. And on that note, love yourself, live fearlessly, and make it a great day, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you so much, Julia. This was amazing.
Oh, thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you.